Hello again, Michael Brown here, Whitestone Clinic. This is a second lesson in our series on motivation, how to get the best out of therapy. And today our topic is what is, what could be. Clarity creates power. So this is often the early part of therapy where we're exploring the events, the things that have occurred. We're looking for things like your circumstances, but also like how you've been historically working with those circumstances. And some things might have worked for you, and obviously you didn't need therapy for that. And some things are not working for you, or some things really turned out badly. So we don't want to keep doing those. So therapy kind of needs a little bit of a sense of where are we starting from. And it's kind of like where you're on a map and in front of a map, and you see the "you are here" arrow. We kind of need to know where we're starting, but in a way, we know where we're starting by looking at where we've recently been. And it gives us some context. So we need to answer those questions. And the first part of the assessments really is helping hear the story of what happened to you, what you've been doing, and so on. There'll be in the homework below a guided self-assessment worksheet. We're going to look for the ideal future visualization, which is similar to magic wand thing, and we're gonna actually describe what is your current situation. And now here's a little extra tip, right? When we're trying to talk about what's going on, we don't realize it, but we're giving a very one-sided, like narrow view of the events in our life, because we can't see what we can't see, right? We don't know what we don't know, and we're stuck in narratives, and narratives is sort of like a template of how we see life and how we see a certain kind of situation or story. So when we're in front of a therapist and we're sharing our story, we're really going to be communicating what we already see and hear. It won't feel very good. Like you'll be like, I'm just telling this person stuff I keep telling myself, right? But it's important in the therapy process because the therapist needs to know what that is, right? So we want to hear how you're interpreting things, how you tell the story, how you're even describing the problem, right? The problem for the therapist is they don't have the fuller context. I mean, in some situations we invite, let's say you have a life partner, a spouse, and we can say, let them come visit the file, and second or third session, and they would visit the file, not as a couple session, but just to inform the therapist from another point of view, someone who kind of lives with you daily, what they experience. It gives us a little bit more data, kind of look at the situation. Now we know they come in with their own narrative and their own biased view, so we understand that, but it gives us some more data than like what you're probably going to be able to present, okay? So that's not a bad idea if you have that opportunity. But one of the things we're listening for is the way you're telling the story. What we can see might be something being left out. We don't know what it is, but we can tell something maybe doesn't kind of compute there. And there's other aspects that we're listening for in that assessment phase. But it's important to come with your story. And you'll probably realize as you're telling the story, like you've reiterated the story, right? You've reified the beliefs, like you made them more and more real to you. But that is your beliefs. That's where your starting point is. And that's what we need to know. So what is, okay? The other is trying to understand, well, what could be? And here also we're stuck by our biases, because one of the reasons people seek a therapist is maybe they can't see a way out, right? Or maybe they can see it should be this way, but I can't seem to get that done. Those are like the two main positions. And so the therapist is supposed to help you get out according to your already existing plan that isn't working. Okay, so you see where some of the problems can come in here, right? Now, it never is the job of the therapist to like take over your life and tell you what you should do. Answer your questions, do this, don't do that. That really is not the role of the therapist. The therapist is trying to help you self-discover. And part of that self-discovery is understanding our own biases, understanding our narratives, understanding the things that is actually limiting our options sometimes, right? I mean, some of the ideas might be great, and there might be just certain obstacles therapist can help you remove and then allow you to do your plan. That would be great. But sometimes we have to look and think of how we might need to actually have a new plan. And so that's part of the therapy assessment phase. And as the therapy plan is mapped out, you can kind of see why you might want to go with a more objective plan. Okay. But again, the therapist is using your material and their past experiences and their, theoretical framework and all these other things as helps in guiding you towards your, growth and healing. So the describing what you want it to be needs certain characteristics or, check boxes. It has to be something that's specific. The most common thing when I ask somebody, any therapist asks a client, like, what do you want to be? I want to be happy, right? I know you're going to say that, happy. And like, that's nice, okay? Happy is actually one of my least favorite words because it kind of comes from the word happenstance, and it kind of basically means like that things should just be good, like I should be okay with how things are, or just be, somewhat smiley and enjoying things and like a happy state, right? That's a terrible, sorry, but it's a terrible plan. It is good to find contentment in life. It is good to be able to stay serene under, tumultuous circumstances, and those are good things, but it's not a specific enough plan. Like, you need to say, like, I specifically want to build this character trait. I specifically want to change my thinking into a more positive framework, or, something like that. So we want to be specific. The other thing, though, it has to be measurable. So measurable in the sense of like, well, what is it now? And we might do like a Likert scale, out of 7. How far along are you with that thing you're working on? Oh, I'm a 2. That's why I'm getting therapy. Okay. How do we get to a 7, right? Like that's kind of, or me happy with a 6, right? But how do we get there? And so we need a way to measure it. So sometimes you might do some psychometrics or tests. There might be other ways we can measure it, but we need to say, like, if we're on the other side of therapy and that is your specific goal, what are we measuring to see that you got there, right? So that takes some thought. Another thing is it has to be meaningful, obviously, to you. It has to be like have a purpose. It have be part of those values, that kind of thing. But it also has to be achievable. So I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, it's not technically as possible for anybody, right? But that the issue is like, well, how achievable is it based on what skills or opportunities or whatever that you have, right? So, realistic, I think that's the other thing. It's another aspect to it. And is it realistic to expect that outcome, right? And I think it has to be something that can be done within a reasonable amount of time, so you can get to it, within this lifetime, or within a year, or that kind of thing. You need to have a sense of a time frame to do it. So, what have you already tried? That's the first starting point. People are trying, sometimes they're reporting that I can't do anything. Maybe they're in a deep depression, something else is going on in their life. They know they want to be out of it, but they just don't do anything about it. So then that would be actually the first object, the thing to look at. Let's help with that issue, because like we're not going to get to anything else if we don't get past that obstacle, right? But a lot of times people are trying many different things and they're working out to various degrees. Some of them are not. But you have to start off telling the therapist what you've already tried. Like, you don't want to spend time in therapy with the therapist giving you ideas of things you already have done, right? So you kind of need to come with a little bit of preparation to your first sessions where you're able to explain, this is exactly how I handle that situation. This is the things I've done, the books I've read, the techniques I've tried, whatever it is, right? And that's important for the therapist to know. But also, we want to understand like what works for you. So some things have helped a little bit or a lot. Why do you think that helped you? And how do we do more of that? And what's missing from that that we can add to your toolbox so that you can have more success, right? So we kind of need to look really where you've come from. Now, how denial and vague goals sabotage progress. If you stay too general, there isn't actions to take. It's too much of a trying to get to a state of being without doing the steps to get to that state. So we can't really help you with that in a sense. Like we need to have more particular objectives, right? And now, if you don't know what the objectives are and you have the desired state in mind, the therapist will help you build out some of those actions. That's okay. But come in with some ideas of your own, and the ones you tried, the ones that didn't work, the ones that worked, and we'll start from there. So homework today is really create 2 lists, okay? What are my realities and what's my desired reality, right? So you got a kind of comparison. This is the way things are now, and in the other list, this is the way I want them to be. And try to be as specific as possible. And remember from the previous teaching, try to be more focused on you and not your circumstances. Because it's really about what you need to change in you. And if the more specific you can be, the more the therapist can help you. All right? So go ahead, do that homework. And then when you're ready, click on the next video and I'll see you there.